on here. I see JJ, David Edelman and Tad. Are you guys on? I think our team is jumping on right now, Marissa, if we want to.
Marissa, you're muted.
I'm not saying anything, but people are still coming in. So I'm going to give it another like minute or so. And then I'm going to start. All right. So I'm going to start now. My name is Marissa Shaban. I'm the moderator of this evening's meeting. I wanted to go over the agenda first and then some meeting considerations, basically a blueprint of how this is all going to work. And then I'll start a 45-minute timer, and 76th Place will do their presentation. When they're through, Comcast Spectacor will do their presentation, and then we will conclude the meeting. So let's see here.
Marissa, do we know, is Councilman Squilla on?
I can't see, but he was invited, so he should be on soon. So first and foremost, we ask that everybody remains courteous and respectful of all presenters here this evening. I know that this topic elicits some really strong feelings either way, but we ask that you exhibit grace for those who took the time out of their evenings.
Excuse me, Mark's joining now.
Oh,
just
thanks.
letting him in.
Thank you. Washington Square West Civic Association is acting solely as a host for these presentations to the community. So I just want to reiterate, we are hosting this as a platform for our presenters this evening. So as I said, presenters include 76th Place, Comcast Spectacor, who owns the Wells Fargo Center, and Councilman Mark Squilla. This meeting will be broadcast live on Facebook Live and also recorded. Each presentation will last 45 minutes, and I'm going to be really strict with that because I feel like we could probably have days of conversation over this, but 45 minutes. The 45 minutes are up to how the presenters want to break it up. So they will include a presentation and then some time for question and answer. As I said, 76th Place and Comcast will only be presenting during their allotted time frame. So neither group will be present for the other's presentation. So once 76th Place is finished, I would ask that everybody involved in that presentation please exit the meeting, and then I will allow Comcast Spectacor into the meeting. So I'm also very serious about this and will appreciate some some respect to that rule. Councilman Squilla will be present for the entirety of the meeting. He is not presenting, he is just observing and listening. Audience will be muted during the presentations. The chat, however, will be open for questions and comments. So you can comment and question away in the chat, but I will only read relevant questions from the chat and not the comments. So if you have a comment, that's great, but I'm only going to be reading relevant questions. After I read the questions, we'll have a chance to do some live questions. So if you'd like to ask your question directly, please use the raise hand option, and you may ask one and only one relevant question. So if you ask two, I will cut you off. So really think hard about what you want your question to be. And then a survey will be posted in the chat and emailed after this meeting, and we would invite you to consider filling this out. So I'll leave this up for a few more seconds. A few more people are entering the room. Everybody's going to go on mute, so you will not be able to unmute yourselves. And we will start with let's see here, 76th place. David Gould, do you have all of your people on?
Yes, we do. So I think I should be able to share, Marissa. Is that right?
You should be. Hang on a
Okay.
second.
You want me to go ahead and try?
Yeah, try.
Okay.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Yes.
Okay, great. We'll launch into it. We know we want to be respectful of time. And first, I'll just say thank you, Marissa, Tammy, and the Wash West Civic Association as a whole for inviting us. We'll go through the presentation. We're happy to answer questions afterwards, and also happy to follow up if we run out of time to answer more questions. We'll provide information about how people can get in contact with us. David, you want to go through the agenda and intro our
Great.
team?
Yeah, thank you, Marissa, and thank you to the Wash West Association for hosting us. Just quick introductions. I'm David Edelman. I'm the chairman of 76 Dev Corp and one of the owners of the Sixers. Joining us tonight is Tad Brown, the CEO of the Sixers. You just heard from David Gould, our Chief Diversity Impact Officer, and you also hear from JJ Rivers, who's our design architect from Gensler, and also available will be Maureen Rush, who's our Director of Security for the project, should there be questions relevant to her. Here's going to be the agenda for the night, and we're very appreciative. This has been an 11-month journey where we have announced it about 11 months ago, and we're excited to present tonight. I do understand you have a presentation from our landlord Comcast. Certainly your decision to have our landlord there. Not sure what their standing is related to this, and I'm sure they'll tell you why we should remain the only sports team in Philadelphia not to own our own venue. And I'm sure they love the rent we're paying, but we're excited to talk about creating our own home and to kind of revitalizing Center City. And so we're excited to talk about it. Let's get rolling.
All right, so really quickly, just some broad goals that we have for the project before we get into more of the details. And one other note I'll just add to what David Edelman mentioned is what you'll see here is a snapshot of where we are right now. When we announced the project back in July of 22, there were a lot of details that we know needed to be worked out. And we also knew that those details shouldn't be developed, frankly, until we had a lot more conversations with stakeholders. We've taken the past year to have a lot of those conversations and listening and getting more information about how this should be developed. And we want to continue that. And so we hope that this is, the first of many conversations with Wash West to provide your input in terms of how this project could be shaped to benefit the community. We also want to make sure that, this is a project that ultimately contributes to a thriving area that serves residents, businesses, and visitors alike. And then another thing that we're very focused on is making sure that the way that it's developed and the way that it's operated is in a way that creates economic opportunity for both small businesses, but also communities of color, really being sensitive to the economic disparities and really stubbornly stagnant poverty rate, I should say, within Philadelphia. And then lastly, and probably most obviously, we want to bring a world-class arena to the city.
So I love this slide. This is Market East at the turn of the century. This was the center of commerce of Philadelphia. You see City Hall in the background. You see the energy. For those who don't know, the department store was embedded in Philadelphia. There used to be 9 department stores up and down Market East. There's currently 1. This was the energy in downtown Philadelphia. This is the current trajectory of Market East. It saddens me to see it. Starting in the top left, Marshall's just closed down. The Rite Aid to the left is closed. CVS has a year remaining on its lease. On 12th Street, you just lost Wawa. On the bottom lower left, which is the block between 9th and 10th, you have H&R Block and Panda Express left. Last week at 11th and Chestnut, the brand new Target that's been open for a year closed and is boarded up. That is what's happening in Philadelphia if we don't do something great, innovative, and exciting. So why is this good for Philadelphia? We want to support the revival of Center City. It's privately funded and will add to the tax base. We'll talk about the numbers in a little bit. Foot traffic for Market East and surrounding neighborhoods. The best antidote for crime is feet on the street. And this will bring that energy back to the Center City. Transit accessible jobs downtown makes it easier for people to get to work. And we'll talk about the environmental sustainability of the project and what this contributes. Some people have asked us, how big is this thing? And so we thought it's important to look in so you actually can see it and visualize it. So we'll start on the left, 76th place. We're going to have a capacity of about 18,500 people. You'll see the footprint there. I think it's really important for us to denote we will not displace one business or one resident. There is no eminent domain. There is no taking. There is no displacing anyone. We are taking one box of the mall and replacing it with another box. Very simply stated. Okay. Give you so you understand the size of Citizens Bank Park. It has over 2 times the amount of fans and over 3.5 times the footprint. Lincoln Financial Field is 4x the size of the fan base and the same large footprint as well. Just wanted to give you some context there on the the size. I'm going to turn it over to JJ right now to talk about the design and what we've heard over the last 11 months and have incorporated to an updated design.
Yeah, thank you so much, David. And I'm honored to be here speaking with everyone. My name is JJ Rivers. I'm a studio director focused on sports and entertainment, as well as mixed use development with Gensler. And these are the types of projects that we get so incredibly thrilled to be part of, because we really do believe that this is an opportunity to bring activation and engagement and just really incorporate the community into an area between, Center City and Old City and incorporating your community into the reimagining of this neighborhood here. So we have a really amazing series of slides to go through relative to design. But I think some of the key things to hit on is that arenas of the past were very insulated. They kind of had their shields up to the community. And what we're proposing here is the exact inverse. This is going to be a welcoming and inviting arena that really opens doors to the community, invites people inside on game days, certainly, but also on non-game days. And there's a number of different ways that we're going to walk you through in terms of how we're doing that. This is a very outward focused arena. There's going to be multiple entry points, and then there's also an amazing opportunity for transportation. And actually on the next slide, when we talk about site activation and site engagement here, David, you could flip to the next one. Perfect. The site strategy is unique and provides us a lot of opportunities. We're right over top of 2 different rail lines, one being SEPTA and the other Market Frankfurt. And that allows us to kind of reduce parking, increase public transportation ridership, and really create a sense of community within this district. Right now, as David started to mention, we're really taking the westernmost block of the Fasten District itself and reimagining that experience, again, capitalizing on all the public transportation. If we go to the next slide, one of the things that we're really excited about is, after listening to a lot of community feedback and the notion of how do we make sure that Market Street is engaged and activated at all times, we actually took the event level of the arena and we moved it an entire floor above. So now we have an opportunity for the ground level experience to be very porous, very transparent, and be very activated in a series of kind of community zones. So everything that you see on this floor plan here is at street level. You see the notion of everything in red here. These are all opportunities for diverse retail, which we're really excited about. Everything in orange, labeled as SEPTA, are actually the existing SEPTA entrances. And one of the things that is really unique here is we think that there's an opportunity to enhance the experience of riding SEPTA by creating a new front door here. And everything in this light blue is actually all open to the public. It's kind of the corridors moving through the block itself. And again, rethinking about the activation of an arena and creating these porosities of experiences through the north-south connection here. So we're really excited about this. And again, this is an everyday experience. It's not just on game days. And how do we create this transparency through glazing solutions and retail activations, which is going to be pretty important. We do a lot of conceptual renderings as we go through a design process. And this is one that stands at the corner of 10th and Market Street. You see City Hall on kind of the left hand of the screen here. And again, rethinking the arena paradigm to be a place for community activation and engagement is critical. So we know this experience is paramount, and how do we activate the kind of ground level experience and potentially up into the higher levels of the arena to create areas for pedestrians to gather, engage, be with loved ones and share in amazing experiences and events that will happen at this arena itself. So a lot of opportunities for public engagement at the street level. If we go to the next rendering, not only on the outside, but also on the inside, we have to really think through what that experience is. So this would be as if you just walked along 10th Street and walked directly into Filbert Street here. So we're creating this indoor connection. And again, what we're excited about is on the left-hand side of the screen, you actually see the reimagined transit station, Jefferson Station for SEPTA. And this notion that we're creating kind of this indoor civic moment for people to gather and congregate while providing activations through retail experiences as you kind of move down and through towards 11th Street in the distance. And actually to get to the arena, you actually come indoors and you could potentially go up some escalators that you see on the right-hand side. So again, thinking about this design at all levels is going to be crucial to make sure that this is the best arena in the entire country. If we take what we call a section cut through the building, so if you essentially have the building, cut it out, and we're kind of looking at the section, this is some of the experiences that we're proposing, because we know Market Street really want to engage it in a different way, as David was mentioning, than what's there currently. Is how do we create this open experience? So the main entry to the arena, one of many, is going to be off Market Street, and you see this atrium experience in the light blue that we're creating, bringing light and air and warmth, which provides safety to Market Street as well, is something that's really important. And you see how we kind of lift that event floor up where the 76ers actually play to allow the retail to kind of bleed through that street level experience. And something else to note is that their site has some amazing opportunities that is already there. So the loading that you see is actually below grade. That is existing. So we don't have to have, trucks coming and loading and providing congestion on the street. That actually all happens below grade. And you start to see a peak of the existing SEPTA platform, which we're not touching on the right-hand side. So the amazing mural that's there, that stays in place. And again, we're providing opportunities to enhance that overall experience for riders. So if we keep going through here, I talked about that Market Street atrium, and this is just an idea of what that could potentially be, right? If you were to just walk right in to that entry experience, again, this notion of large kind of congregation areas that become kind of an indoor civic experience for the community, for Washington West, to have activations on non-game days as well as game days. So this notion of retail and kind of team spirit permeates through the design. You start to see kind of in the top of the image, the bowl of the arena. It was just a cool feature that, in arenas of past, you never got to experience. So we're really excited about the opportunities here. So something else that we've been asked a lot is, how does the mall actually connect to the arena? And this is something that is incredibly unique and we think will really benefit the overall community as well as the fan experience here. So this is as if you're coming from the mall, walking towards the arena. And again, this notion of a light area experience as a bridge over 10th Street to really connect to it. And what we're really excited about is this becomes another opportunity for the community to use. Again, it's about creating activation on those non-game days, that this could be a community event space that, we think can just serve the people of Philadelphia in a lot of diverse and differing ways. And lastly, I'll leave you with this image. Again, a conceptual rendering about what potentially the inside of the arena could look like. And, there's a number of different ways that we can see this taking form. But, for me personally, I'm just excited because I imagine myself sitting here and seeing the many different championships that the Sixers are going to win for us. So I just want to thank you all for the opportunity, and I'll turn it back over to David.
Thank you, JJ. We're going to jump right into the traffic and transportation, because I know that's on a lot of people's minds. This is kind of the table of contents, what we're going to talk about. Really the direct access to every major train line in the city. We'll talk about how the travel times through public transit are shorter than the drive to the Wells Fargo Center. But yes, we will also talk about parking. I see lots of things in the group chat about parking. We'll make sure to talk about that. For us, the NBA is important, not the Sixers, but the NBA runs fan surveys on behalf of its teams. The number one driver hurting our fan experience is difficulty getting to and from the Wells Fargo Center. That's not us saying it. That's the NBA survey. We don't conduct that. So, our traffic engineer did this study to show from a standpoint of people who are outside the city. Obviously, we're talking to all of you in Wash West, but we wanted to just show people what it looks like for those who do commute, or your friends or family who do commute, and how it'll shorten the ride by taking public transit. For the first season, we are going to include SEPTA and PATCO passes to our season ticket holders for free transportation to the arena. This slide is a great one for me because what the purple dots are, the red circle is 76th place. The black circle at the bottom is the Wells Fargo Center. The purple dots are cell phone data. Okay, it's a company called Placer AI. A lot of retailers use this. And so we wanted to show you where our this is an hour before game day, where our fans are. Okay, just so you understand. And what's really unique here is that this data from Uber, who we've now partnered with, will shows us that the largest percentage of people who use Uber on a game or concert event come from Center City. So I want you to understand that they're originating from there. Okay, keep going. So the convention center, which is adjacent to, not adjacent, but close by to the arena, really shows that they get some large shows, the auto show and the flower show. What we wanted to do was show what is the kind of the daily attendance for those larger conventions that come to Philadelphia. 35,000 people, which is double the size of our proposed arena, attend those conferences. The SEPTA ridership is about 8,000 people on those events. Some people have asked, well, is SEPTA up to the challenge of doing this? And the answer is yes. They will also have staggered times because people coming and going from the arena won't be all at once like they do at Wells Fargo. They'll ease into frequent restaurants or afterwards to frequent local restaurants and establishments. What's really interesting on these large convention days, that the 17 closest garages adjacent to the convention center were only at 49% occupancy during those events. So again, transportation, parking, these questions, always come up. And so we just, this table, I won't go through the numbers, but I want you to read them. But, cars are about 40% of, the traffic there, 10% taxi ride share, public transit and walking equal the other 50%. And you can see what our numbers are and then what they currently are at Wells Fargo Center, all from, again, our third-party traffic engineer that put these together. The transit projections also show that we will need 35% less cars than that are currently at the Wells Fargo Center. The bottom slide is important to us. Not only will this arena be built, where we show you kind of the solar panels and the green roof, sustainability, and we're going to try and come as close as we can to achieving a carbon neutral building. But the reduction in carbon emissions from people not driving, we think is really important. You look at a hazy day like today, and I'm certainly excited that we can help do our small part reducing the carbon footprint. So again, the parking, let's continue to talk about it. There are 9,000 spaces within a 10-minute walk of 76th place. And I want to show you these circles because it's really important, because you can see how many spots are within 5-minute walk, how many spots within 10-minute walk. But I want you to look at that outer circle. That outer circle, for any of you who are Eagles fans and take public transit to the Broad Street line and walk to Lincoln Financial Field, that's how far you walk. And so just wanted people to conceptualize that we're much closer. Okay, we can go to the next slide. What I also want to let you know is that 90% of all the parking needs will be met by the adjacent parking lots to the mall. Okay, 90%. Second, we will be pre-selling passes, no differently than current season ticket holders that go to the games. You get your parking pass at the beginning of the season will be on your phone. The difference is your parking will be prepaid, so when you queue up to get in the garage, just scan the barcode in, easy out, no transactions, it'll be frictionless. Working with our traffic engineering firm that the city is now engaging with, they've come back with recommendations to upgrade the traffic signals, to fund, to do traffic and pedestrian officers before and after games, which we would do, Uber and Lyft pickup spots, and most importantly, we will have a dedicated area to queue the Uber and Lyft cars, which is very different than the current experience you have at Wells Fargo, where you're really, hopefully you're pulling over on the side of Broad Street and hoping not to get hit by a car when you jump in and out, and they're usually stopping traffic. Our discussions with Uber and Lyft, because we're talking to them corporately, is that's the number one pain point for their drivers going to the current venue. The other part, sorry, just that last piece, I just wanted to make sure that we're going to work with Wash West, because it came up in our first initial discussion on residential parking permits similar to South Philly. We want to make sure that people who are attending our events are not parking in your community during the events. And that process already exists for the South Philadelphia residents who are near the sports complexes as well. We want to work with you, assuming you are interested in making sure that happened in your community as well. We go to the next slide. So traffic engineers are working on, this, it's for the city to release this. I know the state released an initial finding. They studied 30 intersections. They now have asked to go back, the state and city have asked us to go to 35 more in phase 2. What's interesting, that all of the intersections studied in the first phase will continue to operate the service levels acceptable to both the city and PennDOT. Mitigation plan. Traffic signals upgrades, grid smart. A lot of cities have grid smart technology. It's a camera-based system that studies traffic patterns and adjusts the lights and the timing. We currently in Philadelphia have a very inefficient traffic timing signal, and so we'll make modifications there. This is also important: emergency vehicle preemption. Emergency vehicles will always have the right of way. This is not dissimilar to the Chase Center in San Francisco, where the Warriors play, is actually next door to a hospital in a similar format. It's even closer than what we have with Jefferson, but we're going to work with Jefferson. Have already begun those conversations on making sure that happens. Sidewalk and crosswalk widening for pedestrian flow, and on game days, the pedestrian only access on 10th and 11th will happen.
I just want to interrupt you, David. Sorry, you have about 23 minutes, so you're halfway.
Okay,
Thank you,
great.
Marissa.
Thanks,
great.
Marissa. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
So want to talk a little bit about community benefits. One thing that we are very aware of is, while we think there's a lot of merits to the project, especially as David talked about, the need to revitalize Market East given its current trajectory, we also know that you don't just drop an arena right there and it's perfect for everybody. There needs to be additional investment and real intentionality to make sure that communities and surrounding stakeholders do benefit from a project like this. And so what we have done is, one thing just as a start is we've budgeted $50 million for a community benefits agreement, which would be the largest in the history of city of Philadelphia. It would eclipse the community benefits resources for the South Philadelphia Sports Complex combined. And we really want to channel those resources to things that are important for residents and community stakeholders. A lot of our conversations so far, understandably, have focused on Chinatown. We also want to make sure that we're talking to Washington Square West, and welcome you all to the table to talk about, what are the things we should be doing to make sure that the community is in a better place as a result of this project. Broadly speaking, there's a few different categories that we look at when we think about this. So one is, from an economic opportunity standpoint, who's going to be able to benefit financially and economically from $1.3 billion private investment to build this thing. We know that the construction industry does not reflect the diversity of our city, and that's been an issue for really generations. And so one thing that we've done is we have actually worked with a number of other developers and institutions, as well as labor and contractors, to launch a new organization called Everybody Builds, which is focused on building the capacity of diverse contractors, help connecting them to jobs that a lot of those anchor institutions are providing, and use that as a tool to grow their capacity over time. And from our standpoint, it's really important, because by the time we have shovels in the ground, we want to make sure that we have more contractors and more workers that are in a place to benefit from that. And those contractors and workers reflect the diversity of our city. We want to do the same thing when it comes to arena operations. And so we will be developing programs and investing in funds that will help prepare local, small, diverse businesses to take advantage of the opportunities that manifest as a result of the arena, whether that be a food entrepreneur, whether that be a security company, whether that be dry cleaning or cleaners and things like that. There's a lot of things that are going to be needed to make this thing run, and we want to make sure that local diverse businesses are in a place to take advantage of that. Additionally, we want to make sure that, local small businesses in the area are in a position to benefit. And so one thing that we'll be doing is carving out sort of an allocation for both diverse Philadelphia businesses, but also local neighborhood businesses to have a presence in the arena so that they can benefit financially from it, but also making sure that our fans are spending money in the neighborhood. And so one thing that we've talked about is, all of our tickets are digital right now. And so when you go to your ticket on your phone, there will be a pop-up that has a list of participating businesses in the area. And if you're going to a Sixers game and you have a ticket and you go and have dinner there before or after the game, we will subsidize a $5 discount for that meal. So we're both promoting local businesses and also financially incentivizing fans to spend money in the neighborhood, which we think is important to contribute to the revitalization. And then, so all of this and more would be codified in a community benefits agreement, which would include Chinatown, Wash West, and probably a few others. And in addition to the things that I mentioned, we think that the other categories would include parking and traffic control, clean and safe services, programs to make sure folks are not displaced from market forces, whether that be a business or a resident. We already talked about business programs and making sure we're enhancing economic opportunity. Just some examples, I'll really focus on the residential affordability here since I already talked about the business piece of it. But in conversations with stakeholders in Chinatown, we know affordability is important. We know displacement is a concern. And so there are a number of things that we could do to invest to help safeguard against those things, whether that's supporting the acquisition of land for community partners, investing in or developing affordable housing projects, whether that be building new affordable housing within the community, or something else that we've also discussed as a potential option is creating residential opportunities on the actual site of the arena, which would be mixed income, which would enhance the supply of affordability, as well as things like preserving existing units and other grant funds that would help to make sure people can stay in place. Skipping over the business piece, because we talked about that, there's also other programs from a culture and heritage and community preservation standpoint that we would definitely be willing to invest in to make sure that those things continue and could even be enhanced, including donation of this time and space in the arena for community groups. And then lastly, before I pass it back off to David, clean and safe and secure is something that's come up in a lot of our conversations. And so what you see here is sort of a first stab at what a service area would look like for the arena that would fund safety ambassadors, upgrading street lighting and pedestrian lighting, new security cameras tapped into the central police network, daily street cleaning, especially in places that are not currently served by Center City District, as well as building a security substation in the mall. Something that's really important for us about this slide is these are not things that would just happen, on a game day. These are things that we would fund and make sure are occurring every day within the community. Something that's really important to us is this isn't just about what happens on game days. This is what's happening 365 days a year. This is your community. You're living and working in it every day. And we want to make sure that every day we would be contributing to making sure that, it continues to enhance and improve. And we would definitely look forward to additional feedback so that we can integrate additional ideas in here that are priorities for the community.
Base voters, maybe, but now we're in the
David,
and you have DeSantis and others that are going to try to go after him. It just
you're on mute, David.
for any of those candidates so far.
Not yet. It hasn't. And DeSantis is at the border today. Getting that issue really
I think we're getting some background noise.
We're getting somebody's background.
the candidate.
I think it is so smart for him to go to the border. The two top issues for Republican voters over and over.
I don't know who's watching TV, but someone's in the background. Okay, I'm going to move quickly through these economic impact slides, and I apologize that we're running up against time. So I want to make sure people understand we're anticipating about 150 nights a year, not contrary to what you may have heard about this being a basketball-only arena. We've already been in contact with the largest promoters in the world about bringing their events here. They're excited. That's where they're bringing their events in lots of cities, is to the downtown. We'll talk about the fact that 2 arenas can be supported here. The $400 million a year of economic impact, that's net new economic impact. And what we're really excited about is the retail traffic. On the left, that's the old model. That's what we have, an arena outside a city. To the right, Sacramento, what's interesting is that is a converted mall into an arena. Lower left, as much as I hate Boston and the Celtics, what they did is exactly what we're proposing to do. They actually built an arena on top of a train station with retail on the ground floor. The retail creates the energy 365 days a year, and that's what we're going to do. San Francisco Chase Center downtown, adjacent to a hospital. Interesting fact, they only have 900 parking garage spots in the arena. Milwaukee just built a state-of-the-art arena as well, and Brooklyn's another one that has great transit-oriented development. So I think I said this earlier, but 28 of 30 NBA teams have downtown arena. Only us in Chicago don't. We go to the next slide. People have said, well, how do you make sure there's enough events for 2 arenas? We are woefully, it's embarrassing where we place right now that the number of Polestar events per year are only 73 in Philadelphia. We're not punching above our weight, we're punching well below it. And 2 arenas will actually allow for more concert dates and other venue dates to open up. With the next one. This one, economic impact, we have a lot of this on our website, so you can check it out there. I'll just let you look at this, but the thing we're most excited about is the amount of jobs, 9,000 construction jobs. And then the indirect jobs as well. And then 1,000 direct full-time jobs. And then just kind of the other visitors coming by, another 2,700 jobs. We go to foot traffic. Next slide, DJ. Thanks. You know, just following events at the convention center, daily population walking in front of the shops and restaurants, you know, increases by 74%. We need to save the small businesses in our community. I know there's restaurateurs and other business owners on this Zoom tonight. And, you know, we need to, right now, you have people leaving at 5 o'clock if they're even working in the office. You know, we kind of pick up at that reverse commute. People aren't there. They're not parking in the garages. They're not staying for dinner. We bring that energy downtown, and we're excited about that. We go to the next slide. Tad will jump in here.
Yeah, I think it's you know, I'll be brief because I know we want to get to some questions, but first, just want to thank everybody for being with us tonight and for allowing us to be here to present what we believe is going to be really special for this area and for the city of Philadelphia. On behalf of Josh Harris, David Blitzer, David Edelman, and our entire team, we very much look forward to listening and learning and being with you, not just tonight, but in the future. The Sixers, we just feel it's time to be able to control our destiny and to be able to do it in a way that can benefit many different areas throughout Philadelphia, but also the city as a whole. And we truly believe that we can bring a world-class arena, that it's going to be beneficial for the city, for all of its constituents, certainly for our team, for us to be able to control our destiny as we move forward and grow over the generations to come. And I understand you're going to be hearing from Comcast after this presentation. And certainly we have had many conversations with them prior to us announcing this project. And we invited them to be a part of what we are doing. And they, for whatever reason, chose not to become involved. And we understand, we respect that. But we have also been on the record and made it very clear that we won't be playing in Wells Fargo Center when our current lease is up. We are going to be playing in a home that we can call our own, that's going to be beneficial for everyone here in the city, where we believe we can truly help create something special. And we just thank you for your attention this evening, and we look forward to listening and learning more about how we can be great members within the community. And with that, I guess I'll turn it back over, DG or DA, to you and Marissa, so we can start answering some questions.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have some questions here that I want to get to because we have 11 minutes left, and if necessary, I can add a minute or two. But you know, again, I don't want to take up too much of everybody's time here. So a couple of questions about transportation and parking. Can you speak to how you expect the fan base to attend games, including who will drive, walk, or take public transit? What will the effect be on parking downtown?
Okay, so it's.
And I'm sorry, can I, before you begin, I think we can also add to that, like how you will determine the parking capacity and utilization. What's the methodology? Like, I think that's a big question in everybody's mind about the parking and the transportation.
I don't give a shit.
Okay, so, can you hear me, Marissa?
Yeah.
Okay, the screen went blank. Sorry. I'll try and you kind of asked me a lot of things, so let me try and you let me know if I've answered your questions here.
Okay, let me know if you
within-
need me to repeat anything.
Well, let me just be clear about a couple things. There's 9,000 parking spaces within those two circles I showed you, the 5 minutes and 10-minute walk circling our location. Okay, on any game night venue, there'll be at least 5,000 of those spaces available. They're not all available all the time. Remember, everyone needs to understand that our games happen 7:15, 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. That is post work hours where the reverse commute has happened. People leave if you did drive into the city and free that up. Okay, we already know that 50% of our season ticket holders live or work in Center City. That's really important to note. Okay, so we already know that they're already there. And so the numbers, there was a slide we gave you, and we will, I guess, publish this to our website so we can show you the data of the breakdown of drivers, what we believe based on our fan surveys, our season ticket holder surveys of public transit, ride share, and walking. Okay, so there was a slide that we kind of maybe I went through it too fast, but I think it answered most of those questions. Okay, so if you want to ask me a more specific one, I can, but we've identified the total of 9,000 spaces in 29 parking garages. We've made commercial arrangements with all 29 of them. And what will happen is, as a season ticket holder with your parking pass on your phone, for those who want to drive and not take public transit, you'll say, I'm on my way to 76th Place, hit go. It'll route you to one of those 29 garages in the most efficient manner that doesn't drive you through the city. It brings you outside in.
Great. And then I just want to, I appreciate that. And if there's anything else that you wanted to add, you please do at the end, but I just wanted to get through a few more of these questions.
Sure.
And I see two hands up. One of them is about building usage. Is there a residential component? How will the arena reflect our neighborhood, heritage, cultural aspects? And then why is this mall concept any different than the ideas that have been tried before?
Well, I'll take the last one first.
Okay.
The mall has not lived to its full potential. It's too big. It was designed as a suburban mall dropped in a city. There's no energy. You can only enter it on the corners. You can't walk into it. We're going to repurpose the remaining part of the mall. And so we're going to give it new life, new energy that it needs. It needs to feel the streetscape. It needs to have pedestrian access. It needs to be totally reimagined. They just got it wrong. It's sad to say because a lot of money was spent there. And but it's also too big. Okay, it was over 1 million square feet. They just couldn't lease it all, and so it needs to be reimagined, smaller, different types of uses from a community perspective. And then you asked me, what was the other part of that question? I apologize.
Sorry, and how will the arena reflect our neighborhood and the cultural aspects?
Good question. And so what we were looking to do, we've said this will be open about 150 nights a year, not counting community events. So one, we want them all to be a public space, community events, graduations, banquets, things like that. Two, on the exterior, you will have that energy 365 days a year with the retail restaurants and now that internal retail. I'm not sure if it was mentioned that we are also adding a Market Street entrance into the SEPTA station. And by the way, the SEPTA station, we're not changing the height of the ceilings, any of that. I want to make sure. I saw that in the chat. Probably should have looked. But then number two, outside, the digital wall boards outside, we plan on creating public art and doing things like that to reflect the city and reflect the vibe.
Great. And then just kind of, adding on to that, what do the neighbors gain in this, in the adjacent neighborhoods? I mean, obviously Wash West, Chinatown, will there be a spillover of trash, noise, and crime? And then what you already spoke to the plan for public safety and maintaining security, but maybe just kind of touch upon some of the things that we will gain as neighbors.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to go, DJ?
Yeah, I can take that, Marissa. So I think, there's two answers to that question. One is, something that we've heard and definitely seen are the challenges created, I would say that radiate out from the challenges on Market East that radiate into neighborhoods. So we've heard concerns around safety and, additional vacancy and things like that we think that this would help address. Secondly, we want to hear from, community stakeholders in terms of what are other ways that we can help invest in and uplift the neighborhood, whether that be, like to your point, Marissa, safety and security, additional parking, partnerships with local businesses and things of that nature. And so I think this is what we hope is the beginning of a conversation and dialogue where we can get some feedback on that. And one of the things that we want to do is follow up and continue that discussion.
One thing I'll just interject is, we've mentioned, but, our $50 million community benefits agreement is the largest in the history of Philadelphia. It's also one of the largest in the country for any sports entertainment venue. So there's capital available to help kind of stifle and stem the tide of the decline that's going on, not just in your neighborhood, but in others. And that's what we want to do, is invest our capital in those neighborhoods.
Great. And I think kind of, tagging along with that, and then I'm going to go to the two hands up. How has private financing been secured? And can you state unequivocally that you will not take government funding?
Yeah, so the private financing is very simple. We will seek commercial debt, like a first mortgage, like someone would with their home. And the equity is coming from myself, Josh Harris, and David Blitzer. Okay. We have told the city that we're the poorest big city in the country. It'd be inappropriate for us to take money out of the city's coffers to help fulfill this project. We're not going to do it. And in fact, I know I saw a comment there about the TIF. The mall site that we're going to take currently pays about $700,000 a year in a payment to the school district. Our new taxes will be approximately $4 to $4.5 million a year, net plus to the city. We're not looking for that subsidy. Okay, we will have a new tax rate that will go into the school district. So I just want to stem the misinformation that stems out there about that.
Great, thank you. So those are all the questions that we received in the chat. I'm going to go to Michael's. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, we just had a election, and one of the biggest points that everyone was talking about was safety. Safety is a huge concern. We just went through COVID. Our city was empty during COVID. The safety was worse than ever. Right now, office buildings are 50% occupancy, so people are leaving our city in droves, okay? And you showed a chart up there with the purple dots. Could you talk about at 5:30, which a Sixer game starts at 6:30, 7 o'clock, I guess, how many people are leaving Center City at that point to go to the Wells Fargo, which is South Philly? So it seems like we're taking more and more people out of Center City when safety doesn't occur. Safety issues aren't occurring in heavily trafficked areas. Usually it's when people leave where all the safety occurs. So it sounds like to me a great thing, but if you could talk about the numbers of people who are leaving during those peak times in those cities, 190 days a year, that would be great, I think, for everybody.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think what we would say is that we know that 50% of our season ticket holders live or work in Center City. Okay. And so they're leaving Center City to go currently to the Wells Fargo Center. They're definitely not stopping beforehand to eat, unless maybe they go to Infinity Live or something like that. But you can see kind of the concentration of people in Center City. And look, we agree with you. We think feet on the street is what will stem the tide of crime. Crime is about perception. If people don't feel safe, they're not safe. We need to create that energy and vibrancy that Center City once had and bring it back.
Great.
Good, Marissa.
Does that answer your question, Michaels? You're muted, sorry.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, David.
All right, and then Philip Alperson, you're up next. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Thanks. In Washington, D.C., in the 1970s, there were 3,000 Chinese residents in Chinatown. And today there are fewer than 300, most of whom live in a single building that was built for the displaced residences. There hasn't been a Chinese grocery in that area since 2005. Why do you think that Philadelphia will be any different from what happened in Washington? Are we looking at the end of Chinatown?
Yeah, I can take that, David. Philip, thank you for the question. I know it's one that a lot of people have, and it's an important one, frankly. So there are a few differences between the Washington, D.C. Example and ours. I think first and foremost is one, that was a development that actually displaced folks and was built in Chinatown. We're adjacent to Chinatown, very close, but not in it. So that just the construction of it created displacement. Additionally, we know from interviews and conversations we've had is that there was very little effort to actually preserve that neighborhood when that was built. In fact, there was a radio interview with the former owner of Monumental Sports, who owns the Wizards and the Capitals. And the interviewer asked her, did you think about what was there before? And her response was literally, well, nothing was there before. And then he pushed her and he said, well, what about Chinatown? And she said, oh yeah, but well, there really wasn't anything there. We have had a lot of conversations with stakeholders there. We want to invest and make sure that this helps bring foot traffic and commerce back to Chinatown that's been lost from the pandemic. As I mentioned, we want to build more affordable housing and add to the community in a positive way based on the feedback that we've been getting. And so those are two of a variety of examples for why we think this will be different. The other piece is that was an arena that was built very inwardly facing and didn't really generate the activity that I think a lot of people wanted it to. And so there's a variety of reasons why we think that's different, but I think the main one is we're not displacing anybody. It's not going in Chinatown. And secondly, we are having conversations and willing to invest to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Let me just add something, Marissa, if it's okay. Just very key is the Chinatown in DC used eminent domain, okay, similar to what happened in Philadelphia to create the Vine Street Expressway and the convention center. And their people's homes were legitimately seized by the government, taken, and businesses and families were displaced. And it was terrible. And it was terrible what happened in DC, but this is not the same thing because as I said early on in our presentation, we are not displacing one business or one resident. We are not using eminent domain. We are taking the box of the current mall and replacing it with another box. So I appreciate how some people like to tie the two together because they're two different, both Chinatowns, but very different.
Great, thank you. And your time is elapsed, but I'm willing to give 5 more minutes because I do see a hand up. And I apologize for the pronunciation. I'm sure I'm going to not do this correctly, but Asantiwa, I see your hand is up. So if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Asantiwa Nkrumah Toure. I'm with the Philadelphia Tennis Union. I was one of the people that spoke at the community meeting back in December in Chinatown, and Mr. David Gould should remember me very, very well. With so many questions I would love to ask, I guess my major question is, have you all really thought about the transportation problem it would cause for low-wage workers who take the major bus lines such as the number 23, number 47, the number 45, and the number 40 through up and down and east and west for this particular neighborhood? Low-wage workers who work at Acme, Whole Foods, CVS, various hospitals and clinics in that area, very early in the morning, very late at night, and sometimes during the times when there are games in this proposed arena. It will inconvenience them and the businesses that they work for. If it takes them 20 to 30 minutes to get to work on the bus very early or very late at night, but then with construction going on, those bus routes are going to be rerouted. And it's going to seriously impact their quality of life for them who take public transportation, which we all want, while the billionaires from the 76ers, you guys ride around in limousines that guzzle gas and driven by chauffeurs. I don't understand. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for the question. So a couple things. One is, I think when you think about the impact that this could have on working class Philadelphians, frankly, one thing that it does is it creates more jobs and more opportunities, not just from what's going to happen within the building once it operates, not just from the construction, but also from the additional development that would be created in the area. And we've talked to a number of organizations that represent working class Philadelphians, including unions, who are excited about this because of that. Additionally, when you think about the workers who are going to be working in those places, this is a place that is centrally located and located on public transit that actually makes it easier for them to get to work. Whereas workers who currently work at the Wells Fargo Center, whether they be concessionaires or janitors or ushers, most of them have to drive, or we talked to somebody who it takes her 2.5 hours to get to the Wells Fargo Center for work because she has to take the Broad Street line to the L to a bus out on 69th Street, whereas this would be much closer, much more centrally located. The other thing is, with more people on public transit, I think that actually makes it safer, especially for folks who are taking it when there's not a lot of people around and there's not a lot of eyes on platforms and things like that. And so it should help with security as well.
Great, thank you so much. And with that, there are a few more minutes left. So if you wanted to kind of close out David's.
David's, okay.
This is your
Look,
chance.
Thank you. I think we know that this is a ambitious project, and in a post-COVID environment, the trajectory of Market East, Philadelphia needs to think big. And I realize that for 49 years, the muscle memory has been to go to South Philadelphia to watch your basketball game. And if I were the one inventing the downtown arena, maybe we'd be crazy. 28 of 30 NBA teams are located in downtowns. Okay, not one, not two, 28 out of 30. Okay, the mall is dying. And I would ask all of you to understand what happens if this mall goes dark, and what happens to the city and what happens to the core. That's a very real possibility here. And I just think that we need to all think bigger, bolder, and we owe it to our small businesses. We owe it to the 9,000 construction jobs that will be created here, the 1,000 permanent jobs, the $400 million of economic output. And I'll just give you an example. One NBA All-Star game is $300 million of economic activity for one weekend. Think about the largest scale conventions that can come to Philadelphia now because they'd have access to the convention center and the arena, what that does for tourism and travel and the hotel people and the restaurants. And so for us, we know that we still have to continue to take information here. We don't have all of the answers. We are not going to prescribe on you everything. We've done over 50 community meetings across the city, and we're committed to doing more. And I think it's really important that we will continue to listen, but I also think it's really important that people think big, and Philadelphia deserves the large-scale project, privately funded, that can really make a difference. And we appreciate your time, and we hope that this is the beginning of more conversations with Watch West.
Great timing, because your timer has gone off. So thank you so much to the 76 Place folks for joining us tonight. I apologize, I do see some hands up, but unfortunately I have to end. I've given 45 minutes plus 5. There is a survey that we've put together that will give you an opportunity to ask more questions and comment if you would like. Katie, if you wouldn't mind putting that in the chat, I would appreciate it.
And should we sign off now, Marissa? I know you wanted us to leave for.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the next group. So yes, you may sign off now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
And Marissa and Tammy, we know there may be additional questions, so we'll follow up to make sure if people reach out to you that we can get folks the answers that they need or the feedback that they want to provide.
Great. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us this evening.
Thank you for providing the opportunity. We appreciate it. Have a good evening, everybody. Stay safe.
Katie, did you happen to put that in the chat? Katie? I don't know if she can hear me.
Yeah, she did put it in.
Yes,
Oh,
I couldn't unmute myself,
sorry.
but yes, it's there and should work. If it doesn't, somebody make a comment, I'll fix it up.
Okay, and we're just waiting for the next group to come on now. Thank you. People are not seeing the survey in the chat, Katie.
Oh. Okay, somehow I think I've become the host and I just let Comcast Spectacor in.
No, I did that. It's okay.
Oh, you did? Okay, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I did that. All right, so next up we have a representative from Comcast Spectacor who will be speaking about the Wells Fargo Center and the current home of the 76ers. So gentlemen, I just want you to know that you have 45 minutes to present and to answer questions. And I will also give you 5 additional minutes if necessary, because I did give that to the other presenters. So with that, you are on deck.
Can you hear us okay?
Yes, we can. You might be frozen though. Oh,
That was
no.
just me. That was just me not moving.
Okay. That's very still. Okay.
That was
You're good.
me being super still. All right. Good evening, everybody. And thank you for inviting us in to talk tonight about Comcast Spectacor and the Wells Fargo Center. We're honored to be here. We know how important this is to you as you go through these meetings and conversations. So we understand the magnitude of it, but it's a real honor for myself. I'm Todd Glickman, EVP of Business Development and Government Affairs. And to my right is Joe Mead, who is our Senior Vice President of Government Affairs and External Affairs. I'll take a little bit of time and just give my background. I've been with the organization for 34 years this coming October. I actually started, I don't know if you can see behind me, at the building right there. I was hired by Ed Snyder in October of '90. I moved down to Philadelphia and I've been here ever since. So I consider myself a resident. My family has grown up in Philadelphia. I really broke bread, so to speak, in all aspects of the business at the Spectrum. I was selling tickets, premium seating, sponsorships. For the first part of my career, I worked with the 76ers for close to 17 years as we have owned them, and then about a decade, a little less, sold them. So when we think about that, you know, we really look at the 76ers as partners. We look at it not as a landlord type relationship, tenant type relationship. We look at it as a partner relationship. The second part of my career, I was honored to spend in the venue management space. And I worked really throughout the United States, and we'll get into that a little bit in the presentation, but selling our venue management company. We own 2 companies, we sold them both, and I had the pleasure to travel the company selling that space. With that, I'll turn it over to Joe Mead and let him give a little bit of the background.
Thanks again, and good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be amongst you this evening. As Todd alluded, my name is Joe Mead. I am a lifelong Philadelphian, very proud of my family history here in the city. My career has traveled several different fashions, but you know, I initially started as a legislative staffer in City Council, working for Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown. From there, my career has traveled really in the same domain in which you see as my title. I've had a stint at the School District of Philadelphia. I've had an opportunity to work at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. Also, a brief stint working in the first 2 years of the Wolf administration as the Deputy Secretary for Community and Economic Development. And then before this role, served as the Chief of Staff at LaSalle University. I'm very familiar with the legislative and budgetary process of Philadelphia and then also the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That is my main charge here for the Comcast Spectacor, is really maintaining and increasing the visibility as it pertains to elected officials, community and civic-based organizations such as yourself. And in addition to that, I serve as our liaison on the Stadium Special Services District Board, which oversees the corridor here for the district. And then I also serve on the Friends of FDR Park, which is our near and dear neighbor, and making sure that we're in alignment just from a coordination standpoint of any and all activities and events that take place here. So it is a proud moment for both Todd and I to be amongst you and really to talk about something that we've been doing for some time now. The importance and the investment that has been made here at the Wells Fargo Center as a part of the relationship of the Comcast company. We're really proud of the private investment that has taken place over the past couple of years here. And with that, I think we'll get into the heart of our presentation.
Thanks, Jim. So a little history lesson. When you think about Comcast and Comcast Spectacor, Comcast Spectacor, really Spectacor, was formed in the late 60s, early 70s by Ed Snyder. Mr. Snyder had a number of passions, but one of them, obviously, the Philadelphia Flyers, and another passion that not many people talk about is his love of private management. So through my career, I've really been a part of operating and managing over 350 facilities, anywhere from Miami to Singapore. I've had the pleasure of traveling the country and the world, really delving into operations, maintenance, sales, and marketing. In the mid-90s, in 1996, Comcast and Spectacor got together and formed Comcast Spectacor. And it was at that time that the Sixers came into the fold. I had the pleasure of working under Pat Croce. That's for a different meeting. I love you, Pat, but that's for a different meeting. And it was a rocket ship ride in what I consider one of the greatest sports and entertainment organizations in the United States. Oh, sorry about that. Speaking of rocket ship ride.
I joined the company right before the start of the pandemic. And as you can imagine, my immediate intrigue in being a part of this organization was having the ability to actually physically come in and see games and events that take place here, and the array of things that, once again, that are physically housed within this building. That was limited because, once again, fans and employees simply were not permitted on the premises at the time. I think, as all of you know from your own personal silos, once again, how the pandemic affected each of us. So with that, I really, once again, got to delve into learning, once again, the overall portfolio and the inner workings of the company. As you can see here on this slide, it gets well beyond just sporting events. So as you can see, we're responsible for the Philadelphia Flyers, the Philadelphia Wings, which is a professional lacrosse affiliate. But also, in addition to that, we do a series of events that take place throughout the course of a calendar year. We also own the Philadelphia Flyers Training Center. And also we have a esports affiliate, which is, once again, is housed in South Korea. So we span the gamut of just activity, events, interest, as it pertains to not only Philadelphia, but more broadly, a international perspective, with all of the events and activities that take place within this footprint. We're proud partners of our neighbors, the Philadelphia Eagles, and then also the Philadelphia Phillies. And and it's our hope to once again be able to continue to work with them as well too. Something that's also turned into being a positive attribute for us is Xfinity Live. It's a space where folks who, whether they're coming in the building for a game, leaving the building for a game, or maybe not even coming to a game, it is a space for them to be able to gather, socialize, and once again, being able to view not only events that take place within each of the arenas or the facilities here, but also any sporting event and activity that's taking place across the country. So with that, this gives you an overview of who and what Comcast Spectacor does on a day-to-day basis.
Thanks, Joe. So a little bit about the complex in the arena, which we're here to talk about tonight. So obviously, we're a Philadelphia-based organization. Our DNA is in Philly, born and raised. Talked about it, founded by Ed Snyder, grown under the leadership of Brian and Ralph Roberts. And we treat this like a family business at the end of the day. We care deeply about this region. And currently, as everybody knows, proudly, our new chairman, Dan Hilferty, has come on board. So when we look at the 98%, what does that mean? From an event perspective, the complex in this building hosts close to 230 events a year. That's basketball, hockey, concerts, family shows, comedy. So of date availability, we are getting everything that is to be had here in the complex. There's not dates that we turn away that we can't get. This is literally the third busiest building in the United States. When you think about the complex itself at this moment in time, there's really a renaissance in the concert industry, both between touring indoors and touring outdoors. And this complex is having the pleasure this summer, we're going to host close to 14 outdoor events. We just went through 3 Taylor Swift sold out acts, which I'm sure everybody saw, heard about, or attended, or their children were singing and became Swifties. We've got 2 Springsteen dates coming up in August, mixed in with Ed Sheeran, Billy Joel, and Stevie Nicks. As we sit here currently tonight, we've got over 12,000 people in the building for a Bryan Adams concert. And last week we hosted 2 sold out country acts with Zach Bryan. So from an event perspective, this building is getting all the events that are to be had and literally turning no events away. We host 2.7 million annual visitors through the complex yearly. 2.7 million visitors. 1 in 5 people, adults in the city, come to this complex yearly. 1 in 5. 20,000 parking spots. I want to park for a second here, if I may, and talk about the parking and the ingress and the egress. As I look to my left, we have 22,000 spots that go from our complex to across the street from me, where the old Veterans Stadium was, across the other side to the Link, and down Darien Street. Within 0.3 miles, we have 20,000 parking spots. On our site itself, we have 6,000 spots. In addition, we've got the Broad Street line that runs and stops right to my left here. And we basically, that's about 150 to 200 yards walking distance to the complex. Our ingress and egress, we're nestled between 76 and 95. So when you think about this complex, it's one of the most unique sports complexes in the United States. It was an urban engineering, civil engineering marvel in the sense that this complex can house events really that no other city on a contiguous basis can. We have the ability to host a World Series game at Citizens Bank and a Sixers game. We have the ability on the next night to host a World Series game and a Flyers.
I'm sorry, I believe there's an issue with the connection. Hello? All right. Oh gosh, that Xfinity internet. All right, we'll see if we can get them back on here. All right, they've just fallen off. And the provider jokes are rolling in. Sorry. We'll see if they can get back on. I appreciate everybody's patience. While we wait, I think if anybody has any questions for Councilman Squilla, who's also on this call, I know that he's been listening to both parties here. So Councilman, does anyone have any questions for Councilman Squilla as we wait for the Comcast folks to get back on? You can raise a hand or put it in the chat, whatever you feel comfortable with. So here's a question, Councilman Squilla, what will determine your decision on this? It is ultimately your decision. I don't know if Councilman Squilla is. He is on, so. Let's see if he. Well, Comcast is back on, so I'm going to admit them, and then we can ask Councilman Squilla that question when they are done. Sorry for this, folks. right. Hello.
Hello.
Okay, we are back.
We had a little technical difficulty.
Yeah, so there were
We
many
had-
provider issue comments in the chat that were actually
I'm
quite
sure.
funny, so just gotta say.
So many provider issues, I'm sure.
So,
We can only
We
imagine,
imagine, right.
we had some technology issues. I apologize for that.
yes.
As
All
we
right,
sit
go,
here-
continue, please continue.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me move past this, but I think you guys and everybody heard me talk about just the number of spots, the ability to house traffic in and out, and it really doesn't really affect anything in the terms of the movement. I want to talk for a minute about the transformation in the building, which we're super proud of. We are on the back end of completing our $400 million transformation. Every forward-facing portion of the building has been touched. So the building originally opened in 1996 with a $200 million cost to build. We've spent about $175 million in deferred maintenance capital over the years, keeping the bones of the building state of the art. So when we were able to really tap into this in 16, we weren't starting from the perspective that we had to the wires and the elevators and the pipes. We were really able to tear into the forward facing, and every aspect of this building has been touched to create, in essence, what is a brand new arena that has a useful life of decades to come, decades to come. When the building opened in 96, we built this building for both basketball and for hockey when we owned the 76ers. When we renovated the building and transformed the building, we built it again with the idea of basketball and for hockey. So every portion of this building, as you can see in just some of the pictures, this building turned Sixers blue. The excitement of this building is second to none. And we believe this gives the Sixers a real home court advantage. The amenities from the Shift 4 Club to Adrian to the Liberty Lofts, every aspect of this building is transformed from technology, from food and beverage, state of the art, and both teams and all of the tenants that come in and the concerts can be nothing but proud of the crown jewel that this facility is.
And Todd, if I may, just to expound upon the piece about sight lines and visibility of any event and or sporting event that takes place in the building, not only for the Flyers and also for the Sixers, but in addition to that, Villanova plays close to 10 of their home regular season games here. Every 2 to 3 years, we host the Eastern region for the March Madness brackets that take place here in Philadelphia in the Wells Fargo Center. And then also we have just announced a Big Five series where all of the, or excuse me now, what affectionately has been known as the City Six. We will now have an annual tournament that takes place here in the building. So the continual attraction for events and opportunities take place here, but I say all that to say is that this is an excellent place to come and enjoy a sporting event.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. So I want to put up a quote from our chairman, Dan Hilferty, that he talked about this week. And he's really been talking about, for the 3 months that he's been here. And I want to land on this for a second when we think about what's happening. Committed to making sure that we do everything in our power to give the Sixers an edge. And that's paramount to us. Give them the most exciting venue and give them a tough place for their opponents to come and play. And I think the season that we just went through reflects that. And we're committed to giving them everything that they need to be successful in this building. As we finalize the final phases of this transformation, you're going to see the exterior of the building completely transformed with new LED signs coming up, new lighting. So the outside of the building and the complex is going to look spectacular. And then as we head into the new season, both teams are going to have state-of-the-art modern locker rooms that will really mirror any new building that's built today, from medical to trauma to training to weight. So we're super excited about what's happening, as we close out the transformation around the complex. what's possible, what's next. And I think that's a real big discussion point right now. So I have 3 images up here of sports and entertainment areas that are either in concept, the shipyard in Jacksonville with the Jaguars that they're talking about, in reality, in the Battery in Atlanta, and then you've got Ballpark Village was up and operating. We as an organization, we're committed to South Philadelphia. We're committed to the sports complex, and we're committed to the city. We're committed to the 76ers. We're committed to the Eagles, and we're committed to the Phillies. We're committed to our neighbors. And I want to talk about what's happening here right now. When you pull into the complex, it might look the same. It might look like the 2011-2012 complex, but it's not. We're about to go through generational change right here, right now. You have FDR Park with their $100 million transformation. They're going to build a crown jewel of parks right here. You've got the Navy Yard and a $6 billion development about to break ground on the first residential section. They're putting in a brand new 4.5-star hotel, completely transformed. You've got the Stadium Square development, which is where the old turf club is, down to the Philly Sales Center on Darien. You've got the Bellwether Hilco development. 2% of all the land in Philadelphia is there. So when you think about what's happening in this complex, it's really about what the next 50 years is. So as we are committed to South Philadelphia, we are right now thinking about what is our next vision? What is our master plan? What are we going to do next? As Dan Hilferty has said, we're not selling the Flyers. We're not selling Spectacor. We're going to grow the complex and invest in the complex. And we want to create something special that the Sixers want to be a part of, that the Phillies and Eagles want to be a part of. We're thinking about a multitude of things, mixed-use retail development, maybe a hotel, maybe something experiential with our parent company. We're thinking about a small 5,000-seat venue. We think there's a real niche in the market right now that for venues that are larger than the Met, smaller than the outdoor amphitheaters, but a 5,000-seat enclosed venue that is really specific for concerts, esports, and specialty events. And as Joe and I like to say, for acts that are on the way up or
Acts that are on the way down.
And we think when we do this, this will just continue to make this region and this area special. I want to put up another quote from Dan. And this is important. The door is open for a much broader relationship that could involve a partnership around joint ownership. And we've talked to the Sixers about that. Be a part of the Wells Fargo Center. Be a part of the development. Then, at the right time, as partners, we could look at doing something special, something spectacular, together in a reinvigorated sports arena that would have a multi-use development that would really affect everybody in the region as we go to the next iteration of what is taking place here in South Philadelphia. The single most important relationship in this building, and I really can't stress it enough, and I want to go back for a second and repeat myself. I've been lucky enough, I'm honored actually, to have been part of the organization for 34 years this October. Our single most important relationship in this building is the 76ers. We do not look at them as tenants. We do not look at it as a landlord-tenant type relationship. We look at this as a partnership, and they're tremendous. Like I said, I had the honor of working for them for well over a decade. I was there in the down years. I was there through hip hop. I was there when we went to the championship game. Who knew that there was 4 games? There was 4 more games, I like to say, not just one game. So when we look at what's happening right now and the growth and the development, not just here, but in South Philadelphia, it's a moment in time that we are so excited for, so excited for. So with that being said, and this is a good rendering of what you'll see next year, by the way, for the outside of the building. Softscape, LED, lighting. This will give you a real idea when you pull into the complex what it's going to look like. So with that, I think we turn it over to Q&A. I think we were short despite our technical difficulties, but with that, I'd like to go to Q&A.
Great. So I have a couple of questions here. Number one was, how much money would Comcast Spectacor lose if the 76ers move?
How much money? Look, that's a great question in terms of, look, the way we look at it is we want to create growth opportunities here, and we're going to create revenue opportunities for this complex and for the facility. Obviously, this is a big part of our relationship, but it's not just financial for us, because whether they stay or go, we will develop this complex.
I think you're on mute.
What is your opinion on the proposed arena?
That's a good question. And what I want to talk about is the way we think about it is the DNA of this organization, from Ed Snyder through Comcast, is we know the space, we know the arena space very well. So when we look at this and think about from a content perspective, just solely from a content perspective, we're getting 98% of the events that are to be had here. So from our perspective, we look at it as how many events are there other than the 41 dates that the Sixers have, plus playoff games, deep playoff games. So when we think about it, are we talking about 60 events, 70 events? And those economics to us from an arena perspective only don't work. We have very deep relationships with Live Nation. We have deep relationships with Feld Entertainment, with Globetrotters, with Villanova. We create events, the City Series that's coming. So from our perspective, in the 230 events that we do and the 50 concerts that we do, it's really a content piece. And then when you get into the downbound business, you start thinking about the business. If there aren't 100 or 150 events, then what happens on a very basic level to the other revenue streams? What happens to your sponsorships? What happens to your ticket sales? What happens to your food and beverage? So it really starts in this business from a content perspective.
Well, there's one other piece that I would just add to that point, and that is, and we talked about the 20,000 parking spaces. I think that that's one element that oftentimes goes overlooked. I think just a part of just Philadelphia in itself, and when you're coming to whether it's a sporting event and or a concert, tailgating, just to have the ability to come before an event, to have the space, to be able to flex a little bit and to be able to just be able to maneuver prior to an event. And being able to interact with folks prior to a game. And that's not just germane to the Wells Fargo Center. That speaks to a Phillies game. That also speaks to an Eagles game. So those spaces also are all a part of, once again, consideration when we talk about just the moving pieces that take place down here.
So, another piece of it, and, I think we had gotten cut off. I was talking about, Springsteen and the tractor trailers and the ingress and the egress. When you think about it from our perspective, flow of traffic, the ability, we have a loading dock with 5-bay loading dock. We've got the ability to bring trucks in that don't clog up the downtown city streets and create that traffic snarl. So from our perspective, it's really, ease of ingress and egress and content.
Great. And then if you're done answering that question, I do have two hands up in the audience. So I'm going to move to Jeremy first. Jeremy, if you would like to unmute and ask your question.
Hello, thank you. My
Hey,
question
Jeremy.
is, the Sixers are tenants of Comcast and their lease is up in 2031. I think we can all agree that tenant rights are very important, as you heard previously. How is this not an overreach of a greedy landlord who's trying to control their tenants?
First off, I was not on for the earlier presentation. I think you'd have to talk about a little more definition around greedy landlord. I'm not sure what you're asking there in terms of an overreach.
And I also don't think that we're trying to control them. I mean, truth be told, they have the capability to explore beyond the terms of their lease, which we have not prevented. I think, secondly to that, we have just talked about a significant investment, albeit in lieu of their consideration of leaving, that we would have made this investment in the building regardless of that declaration that they would consider leaving the premises here. So I don't think by any means that we're trying to control them. I think, we're open to conversation. We're receptive to their thoughts about how we can improve relationship. So, with that, I would temper the term of control, per your question.
And Jeremy, I think one of the things, I just would like to reiterate from our perspective is, we don't look at ourselves as a landlord at all. We really look at it as a partnership with the 76ers.
Great. And then we have a question from Maggie. Maggie, if you want to unmute and ask your question.
Thank you. And thank you everybody for taking this time to present to us. My question is, so you're not supportive of the Sixers building this new arena downtown, but it has been reported that you're looking at developing a smaller concert venue down there. Just curious as to why that is.
So when we look at it, and thanks for the question, Maggie. And when we look at, we really, as we whiteboard our master development right now and think about kind of what is the next direction in the complex, we really are focused very heavily on a small arena, 5,000 seat arena that we think there's a real hole in the market. We've talked to the Live Nations of the world, the AGs of the world, the Larry Maggots of the world, and we think that there's a real niche for that size arena for smaller acts, as we were talking about, that are coming up, and then the acts that are really on the way back down again. We think there's a real fit for that.
And Maggie, if I may just add to that, I mean, we have proven just simply in the marketplace here, once again, we have the ability to conduct events. I don't want to say happening simultaneously, but on the same day. And we just talked about, a Phillies playoff game, and we have a Sixers game here in the building 2 or 3 hours after the fact. Considering the scale of, once again, the footprint that takes place in the Phillies, I think if we can successfully load people in and load people out for 20,000 folk attended Phillies game, I think we can certainly accomplish that with a 5,000 arena.
And then, Maggie, lastly, I think it's really the right place to do it and the right time to do it. We've got the infrastructure, we've got the land, we've got the ability to do it. And as this region in South Philadelphia changes, it's the right time. With the residents that are going in at the Navy Yard, with FDR Park going through its transformation, and then additional development taking place down here, we really think the capacity and it's the right time to do that.
Great. Well, I see a question has popped up from Jack. Jack, you have your hand raised. You can unmute and ask your question.
Well, thank you so much for your time. My question is with regards to the prospect of future development. There have been a number of proposals, both for the Pattison Place office project, the Fusion Esports Arena that was 3,500 seats. And with those not moving forward, I guess what's different this time for us to expect that there actually will be something tangible, obviously besides the gorgeous additions to the arena currently, but is there going to be anything else that's going to be invested in the interim? Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. That's a great question. I think in this industry, quite honestly, and everybody has felt it in every business. What's different is we are years out. Can you guys still hear me? We are
Yes.
years. The developments that you're referencing, from the esports to the Patterson Place, were honestly all pre-pandemic. And then the pandemic slowed all of our development plans, obviously, as we were going through an extremely difficult time. As you know, there was no basketball, there was no hockey, and there was no concerts. So it gave us an opportunity to reset. And then coming out of the pandemic, getting people comfortable coming back into the arena, traveling, driving, coming down, that's what's different. So now that we're on the backside of it, and the building levels and the attendance levels have normalized and touring acts are back out, it was time to dust it off and get started again.
Great, thank you. And there's actually a question from Councilman Squilla. I see that you have your hand up. If you'd like to unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know if you could hear me. I couldn't unmute last time when you were asking me a question. So am I unmuted now?
We can hear you.
Yo, buddy.
Okay.
First off, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you.
I really don't have a question. I just wanted to know, answer the one question that you had asked me.
Great.
And it was about.
Councilman Squilla, I appreciate you getting on with us right now. I'm going to allow these gentlemen to finish up their presentation, and then we do have a question for you once they are off. So
Okay,
you can hang
I
tight,
apologize.
and I will call on you and ask the question, okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question for our friends from Comcast? If not, gentlemen, if you'd like to kind of close out here, we have about 5 minutes left, so this would be a good time to kind of say your last words, and then you're free to go.
Free to get home, have some dinner. That's exactly what it will be. First, I guess, to close it up, on behalf of Comcast Spectacor, Dan Hilferty, myself, my good friend Joe Mead. For those that know him, Joe did not mention that he's also a Hall of Famer, both high school and college. For those that do know him, they know that that's what he talks about all the time. But what we did want to say, honestly, is thank you for this opportunity. We're honored to come in and talk about the Complex 2.0 and the exciting things that are going on here. And thanks for giving us the opportunity to talk about our vision, our future. We're really super excited about what's happening at the complex and the next iteration of it over the next few years.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us this evening and giving us your presentation. We really appreciate you taking that time. So you are free to go. Have a great night.
Thanks,
Thank
Marissa.
you all.
See you later.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Councilman Squilla, we have a question for you. A couple of times this question has appeared in the chat, and folks want to know what will determine Councilman Squilla's decision on this. And I think it's meant the proposed 76th Place Arena. Uh-oh.
He's still muted.
Where is he?
Councilman, you have to unmute yourself.
I tried this last time.
You're good. We
Oh,
hear you.
can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm sorry. I was speaking away, but I guess you didn't. I'll start over. During this process, we've been having several meetings throughout the beginning of the first introduction of the arena proposal at the Gallery Fashion District site. Through those meetings, through stakeholders, requests were made of us to put out what we're calling a planning study The planning study included parking studies, traffic studies, economic impact studies, environmental impact studies, community studies, and design studies. These studies were RFP'd by PIDC, put out there, and the RFPs have been submitted back. The selection is going on now of who they're selecting to do these studies. This the reason why people in the community and Chinatown community, which is just on the outskirts of their community, really requested this. There's a lot of opposition in the Chinatown neighborhood, and they felt to better understand the impacts that these studies should be done before any decision was made. So therefore, we requested these studies. The RFP had gone out. The timeline has ended for submissions, and now the city, along with some community stakeholders, are selecting the RFP winners, and then they are in the process of doing those studies now. After the studies are done, there's a process. I committed to 30 days of legislation to share with the communities and stakeholders 30 days before considering introduction. Legislation will probably happen parallel with the studies, as I guess the 76 Development Corp, the city planning, the law department, and their legal team will get together and see what legislation would be necessary in order to have this project possibly move forward. So that is probably going to start or start shortly. And then once we get that legislation, we will share it with the community and stakeholders, anybody who would like to see it. And then once the completion of the studies are done, Planning Commission and the city will then have several meetings to go over the review of those planning studies, share them with the stakeholders who are involved, and then decide at that point how to move forward if the legislation that was completed and shared would be introduced, or if it is introduced, how it would have to be amended, or something like that. And then we would go from that point forward. After that is done, if a legislation is introduced, there would be a public meeting through City Council where all people would weigh in at that public meeting. And then if it is come out of committee, it would then go to a full council vote where every council member would have to vote on that legislation. And then if it went past that point, in other words, it passed 9 votes out of council, it would then go to the mayor for his signature in order for that legislation to pass before the project would be allowed to move forward.
Thank you. I have 2 more questions in the chat, and I also have 2 hands up in the audience. So the next question is, if this goes ahead, can you assure us that this will not use any public money? Can you also tell us how much tax relief the developers will receive?
Yeah, there'd be no, from what I understand at this point, there's no public money being asked of council. I mean, I'm sure beside the regular, whatever's left on the property at the Fashion District, there was a TIF on that property, whatever's left of that. But there's no subsidies that I am aware of this time. And if there are subsidies that are being requested, that would also have to be a part of the public process and ordinance.
Great. And then there's another question. Is Councilman Squilla sponsoring that bill for the 76ers to locate to Market Street?
I would be introducing that, correct. Now, it could be introduced by somebody else, but it's usually the district council person where the facility is in that would introduce it.
Another question is, if the community opposition is strong enough, will you pull the plug?
Well, the whole goal is to wait to see what the planning, the community asked us to do these planning studies. Right now, there's a lot of opposition to that. Every project we do, no matter where you go, and even in the Wash West, if you're familiar with what goes on, there's always strong opposition and then some support to these projects. If we can find a way to move forward, a compromised way to move forward, then the project would not move forward. If we can find a way, a compromised way to move forward for the project to happen, then we will see the legislation through. But again, it would still have to be voted on by all members of council. Just because we introduced the legislation doesn't necessarily mean that it would pass through council and then signed by the mayor. At this point, people are asking me what's my position on the arena, and it kind of be disingenuous to take a position for or against it, since we're asking for all these studies to be done. And I think that to have a position before the review of these studies would not be fair.
Great. And then there was a question about, will there be an official public hearing on this?
There'll be community meetings that'll be set up by planning after the review process. And then the only time there would be an official public hearing is if the legislation is introduced. Once the legislation is introduced, then there would be an official public hearing that would be held in city council. If there's no legislation introduced, then there would not be an official public hearing.
Great. And then one last, hang on, let me see if there is. I'm sorry, I do see some hands up in the audience. And again, I'm sorry, Essen Tewa, you may ask your question.
Yes, my question is for Councilmember Squilla. Councilman, is it true that 3 years ago, you supported the 76ers when they wanted a new arena in Penn's Landing? And what happened to that proposal?
Yes, that is true. We supported they put an RFP in at Penn's Landing, and they were not selected the winner of the RFP.
What does that mean in terms of the 76ers? Why did they not get what they wanted for an arena in Penn's Landing? That's a very specific question.
The main reason why they didn't get it was they were asking for a city subsidy at that time. And I think since that, and since they would not remove the request for a city subsidy, which then enabled me not to support it, they did not get the support because they were asking for taxpayer dollars for their project.
I thought I did see another hand up. Katie, did you have a question?
Kind of, but it was more of a comment, so I'm gonna I'm not going to ask. Thank you.
No comments, no comments. Thank you. Let me see, there are some more questions coming in, Council Member Squilla, so thank you. Somebody asked, isn't a tax break a subsidy?
All tax breaks are considered subsidy, but this would be an existing, whatever was existing on the current building. So the Fashion District had a TIF for them to invest the $400 million that they invested in that, and that would most likely stay. I guess that would be determined in the legislation, but I believe that would stay as part of that project.
Great. That seems to be the end of the relevant questions for you, Council Member Squilla. So unless somebody wants to ask one more.
Can I also add just that I think at the end of the day, we need to look at all aspects of this. Obviously, as you heard from the Comcast folks and others, we're being lobbied on all sides. And I think at this point, it'd be fair to make sure that these studies that are being done are transparent and independent, so that when we do get the results and review these studies, that they are looked at, and then hopefully that will guide our decision on how to move forward. So I really appreciate the time of Wash West. Thank you all for being here, and I think you did a great job in a very difficult situation. So thank you.
Well, thank you for spending some time with us this evening. And before I let everybody off, I do have to thank the Washington Square West Civic Association for hosting this evening's discussion. We had presentations from both 76 Place Arena and also from Comcast Spectacor. And I hope that we were able to provide you with some insight as to what both of those parties are thinking in this process. So if you are not a member and would like to join the Washington Square West Civic Association, there's a QR code for some additional information and how to sign up. Again, we appreciate and welcome all support from our community members in Wash West. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us this evening for this discussion. And Katie, would you mind putting that survey link up one last time? Sorry, I hate to put you on the spot like that, but there is a survey that if you're interested in taking, Katie.
It's there.
It is? Okay,
Yep.
I don't see it. Could you do it one more time?
Okay, once more.
Okay, thank you.
Marissa, we can put that up on the Facebook page as well, where people can go to look for it tomorrow.
Excellent. Kevin, thank you so much. You're a dove. Katie, I know you're doing it. I see you. I don't know why it's not showing up though, but you are also a dove and you were the one to help put this together. So thank you. And Bob, excellent idea. I was going to say we will email that out to everyone whose email addresses we have, and we will also post it on our Facebook page. So with that, just before 9 o'clock, I wish everybody a great night, and thank you again for joining us with this in this conversation.